All About Boston. I'm Seth McCoy. Tonight we are continuing the series of talking to at-large city council candidates. My guests tonight are Marty Keogh, Keith Kenyon, and Catherine O'Neill. We're going to start the show off with Marty Keogh. I want to remind viewers at home that if you want to tune in again, you can certainly watch BNN throughout the week to see reruns, and you can also tune into our YouTube channel. If you just go into YouTube and search for All About Boston. And also, we're on Facebook, so definitely sign up and like our page. Marty Keogh, welcome to All About Boston.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
So you're running for at-large city council. You used to work for an at-large city councilor,
Yes.
Peggy Davis-Mullen.
Yes.
Is that, when you worked for Peggy, did you sort of think in the back of your mind, one day I'm going to run for city council?
I think, like most people that run for office, you get the bug, and I probably got it about 22 years ago when I first met Peggy. But while I was working for her, I immensely enjoyed doing public service. I like to help people. I hadn't thought about running when I was working for her because I was working so much there wasn't time to even think about running. And then when she ran for mayor of Boston and lost to our good Mayor Thomas Menino, I went into private practice and started a whole different career of helping people in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And so when you realized that there was going to be a change in who our next mayor will be, did you sit back and think, obviously this is going to open up a number of seats on the city council. Did you think for 1 minute, okay, maybe I'll run district, or was it automatically, I'm going to run for at-large?
I never thought about running district for a couple of reasons. One is Matt O'Malley's my district councilor. He's doing an excellent job. He's a great kid and everybody likes him. Second is that I wouldn't mind doing district issues like potholes, streetlights, etc. And I will do them if people call me. But I think of myself more as an issues-oriented candidate, schools, public safety, economic development. It's not to say that a district councilor can't do that, but a citywide councilor is, it's more what they do, are issues-related
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that a lot of times the district councilors, that's really their bread and butter, is dealing with the constituent services. And at large, you do have a better chance and opportunity to work on the larger issues. So if education is one of your issues, what do you see right now in Boston Public Schools that you would want to change, that you would want to work to better?
Well, I'll tell you, the reason I got into politics in the first place 22 years ago was because of the Boston Public Schools. I was a kid, I went to the Boston Public Schools. I dropped out in the 10th grade, a big mistake. But there were a lot of reasons.
But you did okay for yourself.
Yeah, you know,
not that we want to advocate for people dropping out of school, but
no. I tell everybody I would trade my law degree and my college degree to get my high school degree. I missed my graduation. I missed the prom. I missed everything. It was just a big mistake I made. But I never thought for a second that I wasn't going to make something of my life. At the time, I had some issues going on at home. My parents were getting divorced. This is in the early '80s. The tail end of busing was still happening. There were a lot of kids in my school that didn't want to be there, and there were a lot of kids who were my friends that couldn't go to that school. So it was really like going to that school was like going to a foreign place, and that's not the way it should be. So that's exactly why I got involved in the public schools, in politics, was because of the public schools. And now, 22 years later, the schools have gotten better. The assignment plan is going in the right direction, but I think more needs to be done. First of all, we need more schools in neighborhoods, and we need better schools in every neighborhood. But if I am to get elected, what I'm running on is that I definitely want to work on the dropout rate. Being a dropout, I know how it affects somebody for employment. I mean, nowadays, you have to have a college degree to get a job, never mind a high school degree.
Right. Although I think that's something, and I've talked about that here on the show before, is that there's such a focus of people getting a college degree, but we should also encourage kids to go to vocation schools, because there are vocations that we need people to fill those roles. So it shouldn't all be about college. Before we talk a little bit about that, I just want to remind people, if they have a question, they can call into the show, 617-708-3290.
Call me, I'd love to hear from you.
But you know what I mean? It's like, so the focus, I think, for maybe 10, 15 years has been get a college degree, get a college degree, get a college degree.
It is.
But there are great jobs that you can get if you go to a vocational school.
When I went to Hyde Park High School, they did have a machine shop, and that was they had me on the college course. And when things started to go south, I did go into the machine shop, thinking that maybe I might have to pick up a trade. Nowadays, we only have, I think it's Madison Park as the trade shop if I get elected. And I think our next mayor, I hope he does this. I don't know who that is going to be. But I would like to see them put some sort of a trade shop in every school. So for the kid that just isn't going to go to college or doesn't want to go to college but is good with his hands, what's the old Aesop's fable saying? Give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Give him a fishing pole, he eats for life.
Right, exactly.
If a kid doesn't want to go to college, there's a lot of kids out there that just don't want to go.
Right. Here's a little tidbit for you. I actually did vocational school, not vocational school, but there were woodwork and metal shop, and I actually took them when I was in high school. Imagine that.
When I was in elementary school, I took sewing, I took
Yeah,
cooking,
I did
and I used to get picked on by everybody in my neighborhood. I
Yeah.
got bullied, but
Yeah.
But I still sew my own clothes. I still cook. I do things. My wife's a great cook, so I let her do the cooking now. But yeah, they had the trade school in Hyde Park High School, and that was good for someone like me that was just basically going the other direction. And a lot of kids in there, I still are friendly with them today. Some of them did go to college, but some of them have good jobs. Like, well, Gillette's gone now, but they got jobs in big corporations.
Right, absolutely. So what else? Public safety is another big issue.
Yeah, huge. I mean, with all that's gone on in the last couple of weeks, that poor girl in South Boston, they found her in my hometown of Hyde Park. I live in West Roxbury now, but that area, when we were kids, we used to skate on Smithfield all the time.
Yeah.
Run in the woods, everything. When I found it was there, I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. But you've had a bunch of shootings in Dorchester, a couple of murders, Beacon Hill, women getting mugged, groped. I definitely would like to see. I think the commissioner's doing a great job.
The North End too.
The North End, yeah, you can't, yeah, absolutely. And the North End is just strange. It happens. It goes where it happens. It's like
Well, you know what? Because I used to live in the North End, and when I lived there, it was really people looked out for each other, and there were the old ladies and the old men, and if something happened, it would get cleared up. Like, true story. Somebody I know had a bike stolen from them. They mentioned it to the landlord. Was back the next day.
Yeah.
And I don't think that happens anymore. And I think we need to try to get to that point again throughout the neighborhoods in the entire city, so that people are looking out for each other. The fact that there could be two guys, one in the North End and one in Beacon Hill, running around attacking women.
It's crazy.
And nobody's seeing it. Nobody's been able to apprehend these guys.
I don't think I'm that old, but when I was a kid, it was policing by mom. And you're right, exactly.
Yeah.
Something happened. Your mother told the kid's mother that started the problem, and they solved it that way. And the North End, I mean, I'm a little bit older now, but I used to go to the North End at like 1, 2 in the morning after being out with friends, and I never ever felt unsafe there.
Go to Bova Bakery.
Yeah, Bova, my favorite place. Yeah. And I would go there. Still today, I still don't feel unsafe going there, but I realize that the people who do live there are, that shouldn't be happening. And I think it's not the Boston Police. They're doing a great job. I'd like to see if we had money in the budget to hire more police or shift police over to those areas. Chinatown, too, another place.
Right.
The cameras aren't going to stop crime, but they will deter crime, and they'll help solve crimes, as we saw over at Northeastern University. So my little boy's 2 years old, and I'd like to, I used to laugh when my mother would say, "You better be careful," and that's the way I am with my kid now. I don't want Nolan to go out. I don't want him to grow up in a world where he's got to be afraid of walking down the street, and I want to do something about that. Not just my kid, every other person's kid, the elderly, my neighbors, etc. So,
are you going to put Nolan in public school?
I'm more than likely. He's not eligible to be in there for 2 more years. The one thing that's going to kill me is that if we don't get our neighborhood school, right now we live in West Roxbury, so if we get the Kilmer School, great. If we get Beethoven, great. But if they send him to a school across town, that's going to cause a dilemma for me and for my son.
Right.
First of all, he's going to be on a bus when he could be studying, number one. And number two, like any other parent, you just don't want your kid in a bus. And if you got to drive there, it's probably just the same waste of time. But anyway.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, we're spending so much money on transportation, and that money could be going towards schools, could be going towards teacher salaries.
Absolutely.
I mean, people talk about, teachers make too much money, but a lot of teachers are buying their own supplies. They're not really, it's not how people think it is.
Yeah, I talk to teachers every day. I can't even tell you how many teachers come up and tell me, what's going on. We do need more.
Wow, some action in the studio. Little something dropped. It's okay. We're all good.
But we definitely need more books. We need the teachers are doing a great job with the resources and the money they have. The Boston Public Schools probably needs more money to fund what they need to do. But also, we've got to stop the drain of money that's coming out of the public schools.
Right.
The charter schools are, it's a great concept, but I think that the solution to solving the public schools isn't creating more charter schools. It's making the public schools stronger. What I'd also like to see, when I went to Hyde Park High School, I played hockey, I played baseball. I was too small to play football. I was just too small of a kid. But I'd love to see every sport in all those schools. And that's another, if we were to have a school in every neighborhood and we're able to cut down on the transportation costs, that money could go to funding programs and funding books. And my thing is that if you can keep a kid in school or occupied, then he won't get in trouble like I did when I was younger.
Right, absolutely. Another major thing that the City Council does is vote on the budget.
Yes.
So if you were on the City Council this past year, would you have passed the budget as it was?
I would have squawked for a little bit more in certain places. I know it's a very tough job, and the councils there are doing a great job. it's a tough job being on the council because you cannot add to the budget. You can
Right.
only take away from the budget. And if you want something, you really got to cause a ruckus. And if you cause a ruckus, then you're on the mayor's bad side. It's like
Or at least on this mayor's bad side. So hopefully moving forward, there'll be maybe some more interaction and some changes.
to his credit, I mean, he did a great job for the last
Yeah.
20 years. So obviously whatever he did was right. So, but I would do my best. I can't add to the budget, but I would, advocate to get what I need in the budget.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that has annoyed me throughout the years is that at budget time, you see people coming in and approaching the city councilors and asking for support, and they want this money and they want that money.
Yeah.
And I feel like in some cases people are misled to think that they can go to the city council and say, we want, X amount of dollars for this, help us get it, when you almost have to start, now
Yeah.
to argue for next year's budget to say this is what we're looking for, and then really push on the mayor and the administration, look to the city councilors to get that support, but it's not the city council who can add the money.
It's the role of the city council. We are the most accessible. The mayor, you could probably go to his house and knock on the door and he'd answer the door, but
Right.
he's not as accessible as the city council is because he's got a very, very busy job. But when I worked in the city council 12 years ago for another councilor, we always had parents coming in. They were always looking for money for the schools, and it was just really, really tough. But I know the mayor did add money to the school budget because he was definitely the education mayor.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's the most surprising thing that you've found out while campaigning? I mean, obviously you've had that sort of feel for the entire city, where some of the other candidates, it's the first time going to certain parts of the city, but during this campaign, what are you finding that's maybe new or that's changed from 12 years ago?
I ran 6 citywide campaigns, and I still, one of the things like the guys and the women that run my campaign are, you're not the campaign manager, you're the candidate, But I go out, and it's just surprising how the population has changed and shifted. Before
Yeah.
South Boston was still a very powerful, strong voting bloc, but totally changed. We've got the waterfront down there. Hyde Park, a very good, actually it's still a very good voting bloc, but the population has changed. It's a lot of people have moved out, but a lot of new people have moved in. And along with those people that are moving in, their needs have changed. But the public schools and public safety are still the top 2 issues for any person.
Those are the 2 issues you hear most about?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's the, if, people will move into a city if it's got a great school system and it's safe. And if it doesn't, they'll move right out. And that's what's happening right now with, I'm surprised. I was in Jamaica Plain, and I went to one of the festivals there, and I was talking to a couple of women. And, I did my whole pitch. Will you vote for me? Oh, sorry, we can't. We just moved out. So I wanted to say, was it because of the schools? And I did. I said, why'd you move out? It was because of the schools. And it's the same story. Charlestown, East Boston, everywhere
Right.
you go.
Right.
But now the crime thing is creeping up.
Right,
So.
absolutely. Yeah, people are scared. I mean, it's, obviously crime happens in big cities and you have to be aware, but overall, Boston is a safe city. You just have to be aware of your surroundings and...
Anywhere. You
Right.
can go to the safest city in America, and you got to be aware of your surroundings.
Absolutely.
But
Why should people vote for you?
well, because I have the energy, the experience, and I have a lot of ideas. So one of the ideas I have is that I'd like the city to inventory every single vacant lot that they have, categorize it into, is it suitable for housing, schools, open spaces, or economic development? And once we've identified that, we work with the trade unions, for example, and see if we can get workers to come in, stop building housing there, and people who can't afford housing for a conventional loan. The city, if we can get the city to float some municipal bonds to provide the funding for these houses, so these people that buy the houses are paying their mortgage back to the city.
Yeah, because that's another big issue is housing in the
huge.
city. How can people find out more about you? Do you have a website?
Yeah, it's I haven't put it on my website yet, but it'll be up in the next day or two. My website is www.martinjkeogh.com.
Perfect. I want to thank you so much for being here and wish you the best of luck.
Can I
in
say one more
September.
thing?
Of course.
Will you please consider giving me one of your 4 votes, and you too, Seth.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Keith Kenyon. Stay tuned. And welcome back to All About Boston. I'm Seth McCoy. If you have a question for my next guest, Keith Kenyon, you can call us here at 617-708-3290. Up later in the show will be Catherine O'Neill. Keith, welcome to All About Boston.
Thank you very much for having me. This is great, great forum you're doing here for all the at-large candidates. So I really appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, I do want to say, there are other races happening. Obviously, the mayor's race, we're trying to get the mayor's candidates in here as well. But there are district races that are happening, which I would love to have all the district candidates coming in. But because there are so many at-large candidates and mayoral candidates, we are sticking to this format. So it's great to have you guys in.
Thank you. It really is an exciting time in Boston to have so many races, and you're right, the district races as well are highly contested, and the mayor's race, of course.
I think there's only one district race that does not have.
Yeah, District 3.
Yeah, District 3.
Yeah.
So Frank Baker has a nice, easy
Yeah.
fall, and he can go coast right to victory, really.
It's great because it opens up the debate for ideas and issues and really gets people motivated in Boston, and I'm hoping for a high voter turnout, which would be great.
That would be amazing, actually, because voter turnout has been so low for so long. Even, I mean, mayoral races, it goes up a little bit, but definitely in the city council races in the off years, it's very low. And if you've watched the show, and I know you have, I talk about that often, about how we need to boost voter turnout. But let's talk about you and why you're running.
All right, great.
Why are you running?
Yeah, so for me, it's about personal experiences. I started working in Boston when I was 16 years old in a union shop, sleeping floors, mixing ink. It was a printing shop. I was a union worker, able to work myself into the union eventually, and was victim of a layoff. And what happened is I lost my job, was unemployed for about 9 months. I'm lucky, while I was working there, I was putting myself through graduate school and law school, so I went on to pass the bar and become an attorney. However, a lot of the people that I work with, friends, family, weren't that lucky. I was single at the time. It's not much of a hit for a single person. Still a struggle, but
Right.
when someone has a family, that really touched me and affected me. So when I look at city government, I'd like to see it do more for people on an everyday level. And when I say that, I mean jobs, unemployment, issues with foreclosure or even affordable housing. And I think city government needs to do more to help those everyday problems. So, of course, as we were talking about earlier, so many of the at-large candidates and district city councilors decided to run for mayor, and what a great time to get involved. So
Yep.
here I am.
Yeah, so it's sort of like open the door right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like I said, it's a great time to be doing it. And these are problems that I want to focus on. I know a lot of people want to talk about schools, and I'm sure we will. And BRA is a hot topic, but I'm really out there promoting jobs, union jobs, fair wages, and have some ideas, I think, for affordable housing.
What are some of those ideas for affordable housing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't know. I work as a real estate attorney now. And I'm sure you're familiar with some of the programs, Mass Housing,
Yep.
Boston Housing Trust Fund. I'd like to see those taken to the next level. So I think Boston was built by the middle class, and I think we need to do more to help low income and middle class have affordable housing in the
Yep.
city. A lot of the middle class can afford rent, and I know coming up with a down payment, for example, is something
Right.
that's very difficult to save that. So what I'd like to see is the banks. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
not to interrupt, but I am, because I can.
No, go
but,
ahead.
Yeah,
You're in charge.
We just went through this whole process. My better half and I just bought a condo, and it's very difficult now, especially after the whole housing crisis, to actually get to the point where you're approved
Yeah.
for that loan. So for people like us, it did work out, but it was a struggle getting to the finish line.
And it is, and my experience with working with the various programs, Mass Housing and NACA right down the street is another great one. They do great work,
Yep.
but the resources aren't there for them to do it in a timely fashion. And I don't know, your personal experience with closing, but it's a quick industry. People want to turn their house over and get the next person in there. And these organizations, the way they're currently funded and structured, aren't operating efficiently.
Right.
So and it's definitely underfunding and understaffing. And if we can bring them to the next level, so that they can be operating in that same market quickly and efficiently for people that need that help,
Yeah.
I think that's going to go a long way to keeping middle class in the city. And lower income in the city where they're not forced to move out.
And the city does have a home buying program that, you can take a home buying class and kind of go through that whole program and try to get financing that way.
Yeah,
and they can help, but
They do, and they offer loans, like no interest loans that would be paid back.
Yeah.
Great programs, and I've sat in on a few of those
Yeah.
classes.
but I will say a lot of people, unless somebody tells you about it or you know about it because you work at City Hall or have
Right.
somebody who works at City Hall, people don't know about it.
Yeah, definitely under-communicated on all those programs. And that's why I say when we need to step it up, really, I want to see it funded. I think we need to work with banks and developers and really get some money into these programs to keep these people in the city and to help people out with home buying.
Did you ever think you were going to run for office?
I've always been involved in some level anywhere I've stuck around. So, from the time I went to journalism school for undergrad and graduate, and I've always been interested in reading. My undergraduate is from the University of Connecticut. My graduate degree is from Northeastern.
Okay.
So, and I went to law school at Suffolk University Law School. But from the time I was little, I started a newspaper in grade school. So, and it was a foolish thing. We were using paper money, but really a way to stay involved. I was student body president in college. Actually, something I did in grad school. So I've always been involved at some level. But no, it was I was a last-minute candidate. We went around, friends and family only, collected the 1,500 signatures needed to get on the ballot, and it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed meeting so many people. So I always had it in the back of my mind, but maybe didn't think that I was going to do it, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're in the race. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So you've probably been going all over the city, maybe in some neighborhoods for the first time since you've moved here.
Yeah.
So what's one of your favorite neighborhoods that you've been to that you hadn't ever experienced before?
Well, I've had a lot of experience going out through the city. So I've experienced a lot of them. Actually, my family, my mom's originally from Hyde Park. So, every weekend, my parents worked on the weekends, of course, to have enough money to support us. So every weekend I would go to grandma's at Hyde Park, and she would take me all around the city and ride the T. But, I'm a fan of Jamaica Plain and, some of the parks and areas over there that are really great. And it's just nice to meet the residents.
I have to stop you because, Marty was just on and he mentioned Jamaica Plain, and I thought to myself, I need to do my weekly plug for FOMU, which is my favorite ice cream spot in JP.
Okay.
They have a location in Alston as well. So if you have not been to FOMU, you have to go to FOMU.
Okay, no, I have
Center
not.
Street.
Of course, I've been to JP Licks.
Yes,
but
no offense to JP Licks,
Okay.
but try FOMU. It's just down the street, a couple blocks towards Hyde Square.
Okay, I will.
That's the spot.
I will definitely check it out on a hot summer day like we've been having to.
Exactly.
It'd be good to get there. So.
Yeah, definitely. So there are obviously some other issues going on in the city. Public safety is another big one. How would you help address the issues of public safety in the city? Obviously, with the issue with Amy Lord that just happened, and there are several other shootings that have happened in the city that remain unsolved. How would you, if you're elected, work with the police department, with your other city councilors, with the mayor's office to try to get people, reassure people essentially that Boston is a safe city?
Yeah, my wife and I actually were at the town hall forum in South Boston the other night and listened to the leaders address the Amy Lord situation. I was happy to hear one of the things that came out of the meeting is they added, I believe it's 4 new police officers on the day and night shift to South Boston just to address the drug situation. And I'm 100% in favor of more police on the streets in 2 levels. I certainly believe that they should be walking the beat. They should be talking to people. They should be meeting neighbors. We should know them. We should see them. I feel real comfortable when I can see a police officer coming at me and I know that it's, Frank or Ted, and we know each other on a first name basis. And I think that's going to go a long way if we can really put that into the streets. I also think we need to look at, certain policies that have worked in other cities. Broken window, for example,
Right.
is something that,
Well, and that worked here back in the 90s.
Yeah,
so.
And when you make a neighborhood uncomfortable for a criminal to be there on an everyday basis or to just walk around, I think it goes a long way. So I'm not necessarily advocating for that, but I think that we need to explore all angles to see what's going to work for Boston to make it safer.
Yeah, and we also have to work with our neighbors, just the regular citizens of Boston. And if
Yeah.
you see it sounds silly to kind of do the whole, if you see something, say something, but
No,
it's true.
it's-
Like if you're seeing something that looks suspicious, it might be, and you should just call 911 if, it might not be, but better safe than sorry.
It's a great point. When Representative Lynch was speaking, he had mentioned where he lives, they have an email chain in the neighborhood.
Right.
And my wife and I were walking home with our neighbor Mary from the meeting, and she said, and we live in a little section, between two cross streets, and she said it would be really great if we had an email chain in our neighborhood. So my wife said, oh, we need to do that, So even at a lower level in terms of just going around to your neighbors and saying, why don't we in this block get together and communicate with each other on what happens in our neighborhood, and that's going to go a long way to.
Yeah, I mean, because especially now, obviously Boston's a transient city. We have a lot of people here who go to school here, they end up leaving, or young professionals who come maybe work here a year or two after they get out of college, but they leave. Even some, older people come into the city, but they only stay a few years and then they leave. But if we're communicating amongst ourselves in our neighborhoods and getting to know each other, then oh, well, Mary and Tom are leaving. They're moving to, wherever. Or they're going away to Ireland or to Brazil or to wherever it is, and then okay, we're going to keep an eye on their house.
And I think that also brings people together in terms of I lived on the block there for 4 years now. I was in Dorchester for 11 years prior to that, and we've never had a block party or an event like that. And when people start talking to each other, the social events come out, and improvement of the overall community comes out through that. So it can be an avenue to so many other things if people are connected in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Education is another big issue. Obviously, there are some changes that need to be made, in my opinion. How would you work to see some changes implemented?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't grow up in Boston, so I didn't go to school in Boston. My first introduction to Boston schooling was actually reading Common Ground, which I'm sure you've read by Lucas. So I know busing then and then now is an issue that everyone talks about. My wife and I walk around the neighborhood a lot. Something that bothers me is that we want to stay in Boston. We want to raise a family in Boston. Something that bothers me is that I can't look at a school, walk by it, and say, my child's going to go to that school.
Right.
And I think that's something we need to address. I'd like to see people staying in the neighborhoods, whether it's one school in the neighborhood or an option of schools in the neighborhood, being able to send their children somewhere in their neighborhood. I know there's a diversity argument to that, which I can appreciate and understand. I also think Boston is becoming such a diverse place in the basic neighborhoods anyway, that I think that problem may indeed answer itself. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, even 10 years ago, but certainly 20 years ago, you could look at the neighborhoods and they were very much segregated in certain parts of the city, whereas now it's not really that case because people are moving into the city, other people are moving out, just things are changing. And so you're right. I think that, it would be less of an issue to go back to neighborhood schools because the schools themselves would be diverse just by the nature of the makeup of neighborhoods.
Right. And in saying that, though, we do have to pay attention then to the fact that some neighborhood schools are struggling, where in other neighborhoods the schools are doing well. I'm not a teacher. I don't have educational background. I'm a strong believer in working with teachers and working with the administrators to make sure they're getting the resources they need to go ahead and make the school better, and then holding them accountable.
Absolutely.
I have seen some other things in some other cities. One thing, just an idea that I had, and I think they're doing it in San Francisco, it's a Kickstart program. So what they're doing is they're taking, for every student that comes into the public schools, they're taking $50 and they're putting it in a college fund, a technical school fund, some sort of fund earmarked for that particular student. And I think what that does is it shows each student, we believe in you, we want you to succeed, we're gonna put some money behind you to make you go forward. Now I know $50 isn't a lot of money and it's not gonna pay for college, but maybe as they go forward, they can see that somebody believes in them to go forward and do something. So, I really favor those outside the box kind of thinking, and I'd like to see more of that in Boston, whether it be that program or another program to help the schools.
Well, and I also think, there are certainly good schools here in the city that work very well. They're teaching the kids, extremely well, and we need to figure out how to duplicate that. And to me, maybe it's harder than it looks, but if you see a school that's really succeeding, figure out what they're doing in there, what the
Yeah.
principal's doing, what the teachers are doing, and try to duplicate that in school after school after school until all the schools are working to the best of their ability.
And I know there's a large, massive people supporting charter schools right now, and the success they're having, and there's an argument that they handpick the most successful students or the smartest students, so
Right.
they are successful. They did a study at MIT that you may have seen, and what they did is statistically measured up the lowest performing schools and how students from those schools would do in charter schools, and their performance went skyrocketed. So I think I don't really want to get into the debate of charter schools, non-charter schools. I
Right.
mean, I think we have to look at it. It's not something I can answer here for you tonight, but I think it's something that we need to explore how they're succeeding on that level and try to bring that into public schools as well.
Well, I think part of the benefit of a charter school is that it's allows the students to kind of pick and choose the curriculum.
Yeah.
And if we had public schools in that same model,
Yeah.
but we're not a charter school, I think people would, they would flourish because, for example, when I was in high school, I didn't want to take math. That was one of the requirements that you had to do. So I said to my mother and ultimately the school, I'm not going to do algebra. I can't, I don't think that way. I cannot do it. I'm never going to use it
Right.
once I get out of here. So what else can I do? So I took a business math, which I think every single student should
absolutely.
be teaching or learning. And they should actually be starting probably in middle school so that they learn financial literacy. But then also I took a tech math, which, I'm never going to use tech math either, but it was a way for me to get out of doing algebra. But if I had the choice to say, okay, yeah, I want to take business math and maybe, I don't know, something else that learning stocks and bonds or something like that. So you have that sort of knowledge of, moving into the future. And if kids are allowed to pick and choose what they wanted to take, they'd enjoy school much more.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's very important. We need to look at the curriculum and we need to make choices. I'm very much in favor of things that work, and I mean it's a pretty obvious thing to say, but let's look at what's worked. Let's explore why it worked, and let's bring
Right.
it to the places that don't work. So,
Absolutely. If people want to find out more about you, do you have a website they can go to?
yeah, www.keithbkenyon.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we'll be out and about on the city. We're actually starting something called the T-Stop Challenge. We're gonna try to visit every T-stop in the city between now and the primary. So watch us on that too. We'll be out there in the mornings, in the afternoon saying hi, and we'd appreciate your support and a chance to earn your vote.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here, and we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the program. I'm Seth McCoy. My final guest tonight for At-Large City Council is Catherine O'Neill. And of course, if you've been watching the show for, 10 plus years, you've probably noticed that Catherine had been the host of the show and then gratefully and thankfully turned it over to me probably about, 7 or 8 years ago. But anyway, Catherine O'Neill is here tonight and she's running for At-Large City Council, which is amazing. So you used to work for the mayor. Just to give full disclosure, Catherine and I go back a long time. We both worked for the mayor. So you were in neighborhood services, I was in neighborhood services. For people who don't know, neighborhood services is essentially, you're the mayor's eyes and ears on the street. So you've almost been an elected official already. So why are you running?
Well, Seth, you bring up a really good point, and I'm delighted to be back at BNN. I'm delighted to be here. I feel like I'm at home. You bring up a good point. Now, it's no accident that a lot of the candidates that are running for Boston City Council at large come from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, because you're exactly right. That's what the job is.
Right.
The only thing that's different is that the neighborhood service folks don't go over the budget
Right.
on an annual basis.
Right.
But the duties and responsibilities are the exact same.
Yeah.
And as you know, since we've been working together, this is something that has always been attractive to me. I've always wanted to be a part of the Boston City Council.
Yep.
And the timing was never good. And
Right.
I looked at this as, this is a race where you don't have to run against anybody. There are 2 open seats. And it's a wonderful opportunity to work with the new administration and to bring new leadership to the city council.
Yep.
And that's why it was attractive to me. And
I
that's
know,
why I'm here.
well, and especially obviously this year you just mentioned it. There's 2 open seats. There are 17 at-large city council candidates, So it was perfect time.
Yep.
We're going to have a new mayor, essentially an entire new city council.
Right.
So it's amazing, and I'm thrilled that you're running. So what are some of the things that, if you're elected, you want to work on? What are your focus areas?
Well, what I was on Linda Dorsina Forey's campaign for state senate, and I got a late start in the Boston City Council at large race, simply because I was tied up until basically June 1st.
Right.
And then my signatures were the last to get certified. And once I did get certified, because I didn't do anything until I had the notification from John Donovan that I was certified. And once I got certified, we have a lot of smart friends in politics,
Yep.
which, is a blessing and a curse. And those folks would call me up and they would say, okay, you have to pick 3 issues. You have to pick 3 issues. And I kept on thinking about this. Why do I have to pick 3 issues?
Right.
I'm not running for Boston City Council because I want to tell the residents of the city of Boston what issues I care about.
Yeah.
I'm running for Boston City Council because it's about the residents. It's not about me. I'm not that important. I want to do the exact same thing I did in neighborhood services, work for residents who don't have access to city services to help them get them. And are there issues that I care about deeply? Absolutely.
Arts being one.
Well, arts being, absolutely. I have a 93-year-old mother, and there isn't an issue that affects the senior population that doesn't go to my heart. When I worked at Kit Clark Senior Center recently, administering a grant to prevent elderly folks from being homeless, I worked with this one lovely woman who was 82 years old and who was eating free lunches at Kit Clark because she didn't have any money.
Wow.
I mean, you don't go and eat free lunches if you have a lot of disposable income.
Right.
So part of the program that I worked at, you had to fill out paperwork that was prohibitive for somebody with a PhD to fill out. So I would help the elderly folks fill it out. And this woman needed a copy of her birth certificate. So I called up, being a neighborhood service coordinator before, I thought, oh, there must be a program that gives elderly folks a free birth certificate if they're on a fixed income. And there's not.
Really?
Yeah. So they have to pay. And now might not be a lot of money to you and I, but that money to somebody that's getting free lunches at Kit Clark is a lot of money.
Right.
So if I am elected to the Boston City Council, the first thing that I'm going to try to do is to develop a program to give elderly folks,
Access,
if they need it, a free birth certificate or any other. Listen, if you make it to 83, you should get a free birth certificate.
Exactly.
Right?
I want to take a quick call. We have a caller on the line. Caller, what's your name and what's your question? I don't think we can hear. Hold on one second, caller. We're going to get our oh, did he hang up? No? Caller, you there? Okay. Anyway.
So the arts, too. Now,
Yep.
when I think about the arts, there was a wonderful article in the Globe the other day about how the next mayor should be a champion of the arts, which I totally agree with. But I am an artist, so I won't only be a champion of the arts, I'm a playwright. I'm a published and produced playwright. So I get it. I totally get what that community faces.
Right.
So that's something that I care about deeply too. I'd like to see the arts back in every school in the city of Boston. Now, growing up in Dorchester, when you wanted to be a playwright or an actress, there really wasn't a lot of places you could go back then. So it would be good if there was a vehicle for folks.
Yeah.
Because I came to my art very late in life. And I think that given the opportunity...
But that was probably something that you wanted to do your entire
My
life,
whole
but
life.
never had the outlet to
That's
do
right.
it. Whereas, if we had arts in school,
That's
then people who are, budding artists could go in and figure out what they want to do.
We need to have school buildings that encourage dreams and dreamers. And you do that by having arts programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I care about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. I mean, I was just talking with Keith about the school system and talking about how, if we ran public schools, how charter schools are run, where kids could probably pick and choose, almost like college essentially, where you can pick and choose what sort of things you want to be studying. And obviously you'll have to have some basic requirements, but then you could get on and have kids who are flourishing in schools.
Right.
I think, do we have the caller? Is the caller in line?
Poor
Caller, what's your question and your name? Nope, I don't think we have a caller.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulties with the phone.
here.
It's okay. Seth and I can take care of the slack.
I
no
know,
doubt.
right? But no, I think that's an important issue, and for you, if you're elected, is that obviously the charter school issue is a huge topic of discussion right now. What are your thoughts on a charter school?
I am not for lifting the cap. I think that charter schools are essentially being positioned to take so much money from the Boston Public Schools. We need to work with our Boston Public Schools as they exist, and we need to give them the tools to do their job. And how you do that is to give them the resources. And if we have charter schools taking away not only the money, but hand cherry picking each of the students.
Right.
If we're going to have more charter schools, then the charter schools should be under the same demographic, mandatory requirements as the City of Boston schools.
Right. So the caller, David, is talking in my ear, so I do know what the question is. The question is, do you support term limits?
Term limits
for City Council, and then we'll answer it for Mayor as well.
Well, I do actually support term limits. And I also think, I've heard somebody say that perhaps the Boston State City Council should be 4 years.
They should be 4 years.
Yeah.
I've said it millions of times.
I think that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
And I'd be willing to look at that.
Yeah, because for me, my opinion is, and obviously, my opinion is only mine, I think that it's silly that we elect a mayor for 4 years, elect city councilors for 2, and then basically, okay, so if you're a new city councilor, you get in, you have 1 year essentially to start working, because that second year, you've already got to be campaigning to win at the end of that year. So if there are 4-year terms, the city councilors have more time to actually figure out the job, because frankly, if you're elected, you can step into it and you know how to do it, because essentially you've done it as a neighborhood coordinator.
See, now she said that, not me,
I did say
everybody.
that, but it's true. And I will say that for any of the ones who are neighborhood coordinators, they already know the job because they do it. Now, the only difference is, like you said, they don't vote on the budget, and also the name is not on the ballot every 2 years. But yeah, to have that opportunity for other people coming in, if they've never been a city councilor, they've never been a neighborhood coordinator, they don't know the job.
Right.
So there's a learning curve. People might say, oh, it's pretty simple to be a city councilor. Actually, there's a lot you have to learn.
There is.
Especially learning the budget, learning the ins and outs of all the departments, where the money's spent, how it's being spent, where you can cut back. So yeah, I think 4-year terms and for the mayor.
And too, I think really fiscally, it will save the City of Boston taxpayers a lot of money. If you don't have a constant, everybody is election fatigued with all of the special elections. It's been totally crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So not only just voter fatigue, the financial aspect of having an election each and every 2 years is ridiculous. Obviously we want people to be voting, and I think that cutting out the 2-year cycle for city councilors would eliminate some of that voter fatigue, because we're not asking people to go to the polls every 2 years.
And it costs a lot of money to run elections, and the City of Boston runs them well.
Yep.
And to do that, it's a lot of resources. So that would save us a lot of money.
Absolutely. What's one of the most favorite things you are experiencing while running for at-large?
Well, to tell you the truth, and it's the exact same thing that I liked about my neighborhood services job, is the people that you meet.
Yeah.
The people that you meet are just unbelievable. Like, when I got my signatures with my little crew of signature people, we got 2303 signatures. And that, like, if I was ever going to get a tattoo, it would be 2303. Because getting those signatures, I got to talk to so many people.
Yeah.
And I forgot, well, not forgot, but sometimes when you're not with folks, like, I got to see the working men and women of this city. Like, when I went I went to a bus depot.
Yeah.
And, we hit pay dirt at this bus depot. We got a lot of signatures. And this one woman came up to me and, I thought she was going to, hit me. And she said, "What are you going to do for me?" And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do for you? I mean, what do you think I could help you with as a Boston City Councilor?" And she told me that every Christmas, the bus drivers get turkeys from what she called the out-of-town bus company. And now the bus drivers don't have to be from the city of Boston. They're not under the residency requirements.
Right.
But the school bus monitors are. So all of the school bus monitors, mostly women,
Yep.
are sitting next to the bus drivers, mostly men who are not from the city of Boston. And every Christmas, the mostly men get a turkey
Right.
from the bus company.
Really?
And they don't give the women a turkey. So after I get elderly folks free birth certificates, I'm going to try to see if the out-of-town bus company will give the bus monitors turkeys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just those little things.
Right,
And
the
that's my favorite part about doing this whole race.
Yeah.
Is the people.
I mean, yeah, and you must be meeting so many different people. And, you know, we were talking earlier that the city has changed so much. I mean, just like going into different neighborhoods and you get to see all these new businesses that have opened, small businesses, new people who have moved into the city. It's be really exciting to
It's
be
great.
running around the city and campaigning.
Boston is a wonderful city.
Yep.
It really is. And we have wonderful people who live here. You know, but we're getting to be two cities. The very wealthy and the very poor.
Yeah.
And we won't be the great city that we're supposed to be until everybody can experience the economic opportunities.
Right.
that
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
has.
that's a big issue because obviously there's really not a middle class any longer. It's the really well-off people and then everybody else.
Right.
And so we have to, and we were talking earlier about housing issues and whether or not, how to make housing more affordable for people who are, middle income, low income, and be able to stay in the city and live here and, go through everything and experience the city the way that we want them to. So anyway, do you have a website that people can learn more about you?
It's CatherineO'Neill.com. And my slogan is, "It's all about you." Because it is all about the residents of the city of Boston. I don't want people to judge me or my candidacy by people that I've worked for because I've happened to get lucky and I've supported two people that have won elections recently. I don't want to be judged by that. I want to be judged by my ability to work and to deliver basic city services to the residents of the city of Boston. And I feel very confident that as I go through this campaign, there's only, 6 weeks left?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I finish work August 8th.
Yeah.
So then I'll be, hitting the pavement full-time every single day, and I really look forward to that.
Great.
And there are a lot of people in Boston that are struggling.
Yeah.
We went to a hot dog night at a housing development in Jamaica Plain that Representative Malia has.
Third candidate to mention Jamaica Plain, go to FOMU. That's my plug for FOMU, my second
All right.
plug of the night.
And all the representative does is bring hot dogs every Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And, there aren't any press people there, but there are real members of our community there. And they're eating and they're gathering and they're talking about real issues. So it's just a delight to be around this city.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, it's a fascinating time to be running for office with all the changes.
Oh, and I'd like to say, too, that I'm honored to be on the ballot with these other 19 candidates.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful crop of people, and the city of Boston is so lucky to have choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you so much for being
Are
here.
we-
It's
is
great
our
to.
time up
Our
already?
time
It
is
is
up.
not.
Imagine it goes by so fast.
It is.
If you missed any part of tonight's show or you want to watch it in its entirety again and again and again, you can go to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Facebook, and we will see you next time. Thanks to the crew behind the scenes for putting together a great show. Good night.